JD, welcome to Far Reach's Podcast Extra. Today, for the listeners, I'm your host, Joel Curran. This is my first Far Reach's Extra at the encouragement of Micah. I'm sorry, Micah couldn't be here to provide the entertainment.
Well, maybe you can just edit in some commentary
guest.
After the fact, kind of like a DVD commentary.
Well, Micah has music. I think when this plays, there will be music to start it, right?
Yeah. Well,
it'll sound good.
Well, I don't know. Maybe the extra, podcasts have their own theme song. Who knows?
We could talk about your consulting fee to build something for us too.
Oh yeah, hey,
so we have James Dean Kindle today. JD, as I've always known him, is from Pendleton. Lives outside of Pendleton. We went to high school together. We both starred on the football team at Pendleton High School.
Yeah, I was in the marching band, really.
Yeah, I didn't do anything. I was eating Taco Bell mostly.
Well, good on you. You probably didn't suffer any traumatic brain injuries in the process.
Yeah, I think after time goes by, you get a little bit more thankful that you were antisocial.
Yeah.
JD is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're still like a director at the Oregon East Symphony.
Yeah, I'm the executive director of the Oregon East Symphony, and I've been there, I think, since 2013. If memory serves me right. It's been long enough to where I forget now. So.
Okay, good. Yeah, don't get too complacent there. Yeah. He is also a writer for the East Oregonian. Maybe we can talk a little bit about one of my very favorite articles. And I'll tell you, I don't know if I ever talked to you about this, but reading it, I reread it today again. It reads like a chapter out of a novel. It's just so well written. I remember you posted that on Twitter one day and I read it and I'm like, this is fucking great. I really like that story. Maybe best known as the frontman for James Dean Kindle and the Eastern Oregon Playboys. I don't know. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to for the last 9 months during the pandemic. What are you working on music-wise?
Sure.
Go from there.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, I'm a native Pendletonian. I've lived most of my life here, although I've had a few sojourns to Portland and Eugene and Tri-Cities. And done quite a bit of traveling, and been out of town long enough to know that Pendleton in Eastern Oregon is a wonderful place, and this is where I want to live, the rest of my life if I can help it. If there's if I get a cool opportunity to expatriate, to a foreign country for a couple of years, I would take that for sure. But rest assured, I would come back. I've always had a passion for Pendleton in Eastern Oregon, and along with my main passion, which is the arts and music. And, I've been very fortunate enough to, I've been tenacious enough in my pursuit of, a music career that, one has manifested, not the one that I had initially envisioned, but I am nonetheless, very thankful for. I've been performing for, ever since I was in high school, professionally, I guess if you want to call, playing in garage punk shows, professional. That was in front of an audience, and so I probably made a few dollars out of it, so I think it counts. But I've gone through many different, mutations since then. Really kind of latched onto the singer-songwriter mode, with kind of an emphasis on folk and Americana and jazz as kind of my touchstones. And that, has kind of formed the basis for a lot of the songs that I perform with my rock and roll band, the Eastern Oregon Playboys, although we definitely take a lot of detours into country. I have another band that I've been playing with here for the past couple of years, although it's been kind of stymied.
I'm going to interrupt before I forget.
Oh, sure.
Because, that is one of the questions I wanted to ask you. So I really only listened to 2 of your albums. I know you have some older stuff, but I don't own them, unfortunately.
Well,
I'll probably
we'll
get them.
rectify that.
But yeah, but I really love your album, Many Splendored Things, and then your more recent album is I wrote it down. Roaming Charges May Apply. Many Splendored Thing. So I'm listening to it. I'm trying to get a sense of what type of music is this. Americana makes sense, but Americana is just sweeping. What is this music? There's no home for it, so it goes into Americana, right? But there's like on the same albums, especially the newer one, the Roaming Charges May Apply. There's old fashioned country western. There's modern rock. There's old rock. I even wrote down like there's some tunes that like sounded like the Laurel Canyon sound, you know?
Oh yeah.
It reminded me of that.
Definitely.
And I don't know if that's on purpose.
Yeah.
And how you go about even sticking to a genre.
Well, I guess.
I don't know what you do with that. That was just maybe a stream
No. That's a good question. Good question. I'll happily go on this detour. So, yeah, I guess I guess I would consider myself like postmodern country in a way. You know, I like everybody else. You know, these days, like I am subject to having the world at my fingertips. You know, I mean, I certainly grew up listening to a lot of folk and country as a youngster. So that stuff is like ingrained in me permanently. But growing up in the age of the internet, of course I got access to, through LimeWire and Kazaa and Napster, I could listen to any kind of music you wanted to. Since hence I've developed, pretty diverse set of tastes. So a lot of my early records with the Eastern Oregon Playboys and even my solo albums that I released prior to forming that group, there's definitely a lot of genre hopping going on, because I would, on one record, I would, first song, kind of sounds like a tango, and then, the next one is just kind of a, maybe more like kind of a, sounds kind of like a Southwest Latin rock tune, just kind of going all over the place, and that was really kind of the theme for the Eastern Oregon Playboys for the first couple records until our third album, Many Splendid Things, which you're familiar with, which is, it was our first real cohesive album in that there was, kind of a full concept going into writing and producing it. And the concept, I guess, was just to kind of, it's basically a breakup album, that album was going on, what was going on in my life.
Yeah, good.
And, and what better genre to explore heartache with than country, which is maybe the granddaddy of all sad bastard music these days. And so really it is just kind of an examination of country and western tropes, and sometimes just exaggerating them, to satirical effect. And then some of the songs actually are like very can get pretty personal to a certain degree. But that was my first cohesive album, and then it kind of continued with Roaming Charges May Apply, which was still kind of the Americana, desert rock kind of sound that we were going for sonically. But the theme of that album shifted to kind of more being about community and just like finding your place where you belong, which was certainly something that was weighing down on me as a artist at the time of composing that record.
Yeah, I definitely get that sense out of that album too. But one of the things I like to, so when I listen to music normally, I don't know if this is normal for other people, but I don't ever really pay attention to the words. I just kind of listen to the music and whatever. And I'm more interested in watching people perform, and especially when you're watching it live. But I got stoned a couple times, and I was listening to your Many Splendid Things album, and what struck me immediately was like, is this a concept album? Because at the beginning it's sort of the song is sort of about kind of longing for a girl, and it's sort of that sense of anxiety, and you're unsure about the status of the relationship, and that you can tell it kind of progresses into more of a relationship, and then but the whole thing is rocky. Ultimately, it kind of culminates in like There's one song about an abusive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, it's sort of acceptance of it going away and like longing for what you had. Thought it was, I don't know if I was just coming up with that in my head or if that was by design. And you don't have to say either way because that takes away the art of it, right? But that's what I got out of it for sure. I thought it, I don't, I already liked the songs, but then when I really like sat there and listened to the lyrics and the album front to back, I just appreciated it so much more.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I don't, in terms of like the sequencing, I don't think we were, myself and our, my co-producer, Sean Ogilvie, I don't think we were taking necessarily the lyrical content into consideration when we were sequencing it. We were just kind of more thinking about just kind of the sonic dynamics, you know, of the record. But that's cool that you were able to like kind of read a full narrative into that. I mean, there definitely is a narrative, and to me, it's all kind of spread around. But if you perceive that there was like a linear narrative, then that's awesome. That's and yeah, so
yeah, I wonder how much art like that just generally is. I mean, it's all about like what the person takes from it. So it's probably a good thing that people have different takeaways, right?
I think so. I mean, and that song that you mentioned, the one about the abusive relationship. I mean, that one has that song. I only hit her once. It's probably like one of my more controversial numbers. And you know, I've had some people who like just flat out walk out of a show because they're so offended by it, and then other people just think it's hilarious. You know, maybe almost to the point where it kind of makes me feel a little uncomfortable that maybe they don't get the satire.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, I feel that it's a successful piece of art because it is eliciting these strong reactions out of people. You know, I think that's really kind of your job as an artist is to elicit those strong, visceral reactions, you know, make people feel.
Yeah, dude, so early on in the pandemic, going back to like March, April, I'm in New York City for everybody listening, where we were going through the worst of it. So I don't think at that time like it had hit Oregon or anything, right? I mean, there was a case there, but I don't think you guys were like shut down, right?
Yeah, we shut down in, gosh, it would have been around like the 13th, I think. And the reason, well, there was we had one of the first cases in the country in Umatilla County. It was a resident from Western Oregon, somebody who worked at the casino. But yeah, no, when the governor of Oregon, you know, started like, you know, placing lockdown orders, you know, it was actually on the eve of an Oregon East Symphony concert. It was like right the eve of like our first rehearsal. You know, we were going to have like 2 full nights of rehearsal, and then we were going to perform a couple concerts. And it sucked because, you know, I was like in bed, or no, I wasn't in bed. I was like in the bathtub at night, and then like I got up and, you know, I compulsively checked Twitter, and like I saw like, oh, the governor is like placing restrictions on gatherings of, you know, so many people or more due to coronavirus. And so I had to like immediately like get on the phone and like call all the symphony musicians and let them know like, don't come, like this is like we're being shut down, like so yeah, it was
yeah, I brought that up because early on, I'm stuck at home. I think it seems so ridiculous now, but after like a couple of weeks of being stuck inside, I was like, I'm gonna write a song. I got so bored, I decided, I gave up the ukulele. I was playing that for a while, and maybe I'll pick that up again. But I decided I wasn't musically talented, but I like music a lot, so I gave it a shot to write a song. And I sent it to you and Paul, and well, you guys gave me pretty good feedback. Paul actually turned it into a real song, which was really neat to hear. But it was bad.
Well, you're your own worst critic, right? So don't be so hard on yourself.
And you know what? I guess it was unexpected that it would come. And what I wanted to ask you about is when you write a song, I felt like a tremendous amount of anxiety that, people will be like reading into who you are based on what you just wrote down. And
Mm.
and you're kind of exposing yourself to that critique, right? I don't know. Do you get that at all? Especially when you write a song like I Only Hit Her Once, it's got to bring a lot of anxiety to be like, look, guys, disclaimer, let me preface this with, well, I don't know if you hit anybody, but
No, not at all.
I never actually, this isn't a true story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Sometimes I would preface it in some concerts, like especially kind of more like intimate, solo singer-songwriter ones. I would do that. But yeah, I guess I haven't been. I certainly have anxiety when writing songs, which develops into writer's block. But it's more just anxiety, just about like is the audience going to think this is stupid or not? I'm really not so worried about how they perceive me. I guess I'm kind of comfortable enough, I guess, with the notion that I know that there is like kind of a degree of artifice between the between the artist and the audience. And I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of comfortable, kind of navigating that space in between, and I think part of being an effective artist is kind of embracing a degree of ambiguity, right? Because like there are parts of me that are there are very like personal, deep parts of me in my songs, and then there are parts that are just like totally fabricated. So, I mean, if you're just kind of a somebody who doesn't know me at all, I don't know. If you were to take my body, try to analyze my body of work. That sounds so conceited when I say that. But I mean, if you were to sit and analyze it, I don't think you would have necessarily a clear picture of who I am. I mean, if you were taking everything at face value, it would just be such a distorted picture. And then, conversely, if you were thinking that everything I was presenting in my songs was fabricated, that would also be false.
Yeah.
I mean, they ultimately come from real experiences.
Yeah, there's definitely, I definitely listen to your music and I can hear parts of Pendleton in it a little bit. There's one song, what's the song off your newer album? There's part 1 and part 2.
Oh, the City Limits.
City Limits. In that song, I think you talk about like the viaduct. Mm-hmm. And the only place I've ever heard the term viaduct, and maybe that's just because I'm like limited in my experience, is the Pendleton Viaduct down there by what is that, Island Burger or whatever it used to be there. That part of town?
Yeah, by Dean's Deli.
Yeah, and then you talk about the train rolling next to you and hearing the freight train. Actually, interlude of the song is a train sound, right? Mm-hmm. That the train sound always reminds me of Pendleton, just because you can, no matter where you are in town, when on a quiet night, you can hear the train going through town. Mm-hmm. I don't know. So that song just sort of, it kind of brings me back to that home feeling. You know what I mean?
Good. Yeah. Well, that's what that whole album's about, and then just that song certainly in particular. I mean, I think that one is definitely one of my more emo kind of songs, just in terms of just like being really direct and I guess honest about kind of my feelings about Pendleton and how much I love it.
Do you want to actually? You're prepared to do some songs. You want to take a break here and do a song? Sure. Well, a break for me and it's work for you. And...
Yeah. I'm on the spot this whole time. Yeah. What do you want to hear?
Gosh, I don't know. I want you to choose. That's what I want to happen.
I guess since we were talking about it, let's do City Limits Part 2. Or how about
I was hoping you'd say that a little bit. and go on mute.
Okay. Days are passing like an old freight train, slowly rolling out across the plain. Oh, shoot. How I long to hear that lonesome whistle. Echoing thoughts of it make me wistful. Joel, do you mind if we just cut this and I'll start over again?
Yeah, go ahead.
All
Yeah,
right. I totally forgot. Dropped a lyric. Ugh.
That's all right.
And you know what I'll do is I'll also put this microphone closer on my guitar, so that'll come through.
Is this a harmonica song too?
It is now, yeah.
Great. Love the harmonica.
Okay, here we go. Days are passing like an old freight train, slowly rolling out across the plain. How I long to hear that lonesome whistle. Echoing thoughts of it make me wistful. For the nights when I'd lie in bed, impatiently wait for sleep to creep in. I can hear 'em cross the reservation and winding their way up into the mountains. And I grew up into an older man. That's about when my troubles began. Seems I could never be satisfied with the surroundings in which I'm confined. And anger and confusion I'd lash out at the ones who love me through and throughout, just to listen to the next conductor as he shouted down the line all aboard. And what is this light that's shining through city limits? Come closer each night. City looking for a thrill. Limits of my mind are with me there still. Never happy with the situation, constantly thinking about my next turn. The distant engines out in the rail yard seem to provide perfect metaphors of how I'm poised and ready to skip town when my flying feet become unbound. And what is this light that's shining through the city limits? Come closer each night. What is this light that's shining through city limits? Come closer each night. each night.
Good. Fantastic.
Thank you.
God, I fucking love that song. I don't. This is probably a pretty stupid question, but I mean, like, as I was saying earlier, I tried my hand at writing a song, but how does that work for you? Do you write the melody and the tune first, and then you just throw some lyrics around it, or do you really think about the message of a song and then you put some music around the song or the lyrics?
I mean, each one is different. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's, definitely just kind of melody based. There might be a melody that just kind of somehow pops into my head, and then I got to get it out, and then eventually I wrap some appropriate words around it. Sometimes it's just a set of lyrics, with no melody that, just a melody works its way into this set of words, this poetry. Or sometimes, it's just like, I'm just like meditating on some concept, some philosophical concept, and eventually, somehow a song coalesces around it. And then, there's also even like kind of those weird, rare times where there's a song that just like kind of just like comes out of you just like extremely effortlessly, like you're just channeling it. So yeah, it's really a mysterious process, and I wish I could, explain exactly how it happens, but maybe it's best that I don't know how to do that. I mean, I've tried to, I have taught some songwriting classes before at the Pendleton Arts Center. But yeah, there's no, I mean, I guess with any kind of art, it is supposed to be kind of a quasi-mystical experience, and, you can never distill it down to some kind of science.
Yeah. I thought that would be a good segue into another thing. I guess I would ask on that one, I don't know, I'll segue into the guitar that you're using, because I definitely want to talk about this real quick.
Mm-hmm.
The guitar Ivania.
Oh, yeah, Ivana.
Is that Ivania, or is that a different
Ivana,
guitar?
yeah. No Enya above the N, or yeah, no tilde above the N, making it an Enya.
Right. Okay.
But, yeah.
Was that the guitar, or is that a different guitar?
Yeah, no, that was the guitar I'm playing. Yeah, Ivana, named after her luthier, Ivan Escobedo Carrera.
Well, let's first say that there is a article from the Eastern Oregonian. Well, I already talked about this, didn't I?
Well, I think maybe you mentioned a little. Yeah, maybe in the intro, or when we just logged on before we started recording.
So JD is also a kind of a journalist for. Well, I guess he probably submitted as like a freelance article, I assume. But
I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm a journalist. I'm definitely a writer, and a contributing writer or columnist for the East Oregonian. Although actually I've taken a break from that for the past couple of years. Although I guess I've had some friends from Baker hit me up recently asking me to review a record, so I might be drawn out of retirement. We'll see.
Is that what is Riley's band called?
Oh, Swamp Ass?
Swamp Ass.
No. And I'm actually kind of I'm also a member of Swamp Ass, too.
I did hear that.
So yeah, that'd be a major conflict of interest, I guess. And no, this is like an album that was recorded in Baker of this jazz saxophonist named Rob Sheffs. Sheffs, I think. I contribute to. I have contributed to the East Oregonian off and on. I had, for probably about 3 years, I had a pretty consistent output of, arts and culture pieces. Would range anywhere from, record reviews to, kind of travel articles, to just like film reviews, or just like kind of highlighting like kind of cool creative people that I've kind of found in the region. I'm a big proponent of just the concept of regionalism, and and just the idea of like kind of forging some kind of distinct regional cultural identity for Eastern Oregon. I think Eastern Oregon is fairly young in a lot of ways, and there are some concrete parts of a culture here, but it's also still very new and just kind of subject to kind of mass consumer culture forces, which kind of flattens everything out. And so I'm kind of more interested in pushing against those forces and just highlighting what is local and original from this area. So a couple of years ago, it was I guess it was 2016 or 17 now. 2017?
18. You wrote the article in 2018.
Okay. Huh. Okay. Yeah. Then it was in 2018. Man, my memory's getting bad.
It was in if I remember correctly, it was in June of 2018. So you might have been traveling.
Yeah. Well, I know I was traveling in. It was in late March, and I remember that because a lot of weird things converged on this week and a half long trip to Mexico. I mean, it was Holy Week for one, the week leading up to Easter. So, there was the religious holiday, and then in Mexico, Holy Week is a real big thing. So there was that context. There was a blue moon that happened during the week, where you have a second full moon over the course of a month. And then also April Fools, which I think, Easter fell on April Fool's Day, if memory serves me correct. So it was just a weird confluence of all these, dates over the course of 1 week that I went down to Mexico, or a week and a half I went down to Mexico in Jalisco State. I was based in Guadalajara, which is in Jalisco, and then the town I ended up going to was in Michoacan State, which is immediately to the east. And basically my intention in going down to Mexico was to go to this city called Paracho, excuse me. This is a city full of luthiers. In Mexico, and really in a lot of Latin America, there are a lot of cities, or a lot of towns, really, not cities, that, there is kind of a town industry. And this was a practice that was set up by the missionaries, the Spanish missionaries that came over. They wanted to civilize the indigenous people. And so they would, depending on where they were at and what, natural resources were available, they would, kind of build up some kind of industry in that town, obviously kind of based around the mission.
And as a musician, did you know this town was full of luthiers?
Well, I mean, eventually, I knew I needed to have a nylon string guitar in my guitar arsenal, as I like to call it.
Why can't you get that in the Tri-Cities? Right? Oh,
well, I'm sure I could, but it would be of much inferior quality to what I have brought home with me, my guitar wife, my wife.
Just go to the Kirkland Mall, and you could probably find that there.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, how special? Yeah, would that be? I wanted to get something that was totally unique, and so I did a lot of research to find out where in the world people make instruments, guitars, and at first I was looking at Spain, because I know that's where the Spanish guitar, the nylon string guitar, comes from. My aunt, who spent some time, in Spain in her youth in the late 50s, she came back with a really nice handmade guitar, which I absolutely love to play every time I go visit her in San Francisco. But eventually I found out that there was this town, the most revered the most revered guitars in all of Mexico come from this town called Paracho. It's such a big thing there that when you pull up into town, either on the north end or the south end of town, there's like these statues of guitars that greet you as you come into town. And it's also like kind of host to like kind of a guitar festival that happens every year. Probably not this past year, but at that festival you have like basically the world's like top, primarily classical guitar talent, but there's also some flamenco guitar players and other primarily Latin music genre guitarists that converge on this town, for just a week-long festival of, performing and then just kind of trotting out all the cool instruments. So I eventually figured out that there was this cool town in Mexico, and it wasn't too far from Guadalajara. So I, just kind of based on my job, it was like kind of whatever the spring break, for Oregon, that was probably my best time to leave, because my job, with the symphony tends to kind of correlate with the academic calendar here because we do a lot of educational work. So I went down on spring break, and I ended up staying with.
You just went to Mexico by yourself.
Right? Yeah, I just went by myself. Yeah, my intention was like, okay, I'm gonna get here. I'm gonna, figure out, what bus I need to take to get to Pracho. I'm sure I'll find like an Airbnb or a hostel or a pension when I get there. I've done like plenty of international traveling, both like solo and by myself in countries where I don't speak the language, and I've done a lot of those travels have been in Spanish speaking countries. So, I'm not the best at Spanish, but I can certainly fend for myself.
You also have a pretty entertaining article while people are listening. When I was trying to find it so I could read it again, I came across and I read for the first time an article about you going to Japan. So you've actually traveled.
I've been to Japan
all over to play music.
Performed in Japan as well.
Yeah. That's probably a different conversation. We don't even get into that, but
oh yeah.
I think it's so funny about they had a rockabilly bar.
Yeah.
in Japan.
Japan's a trip. It's definitely like one of my favorite countries I've been to, and in fact, if COVID hadn't happened, I would be in the middle of taking a 2-month sabbatical right now. And part of my sabbatical plans was I was going to go to Japan. I was going to go to Hokkaido in the north and go skiing for a couple weeks. But maybe 2022.
Yeah, just settle for Anthony Lakes,
which actually I'm going up there for the weekend this coming weekend. So tomorrow.
Nice.
So I don't know when this will come out, but I'm looking forward to that. So I mean, I felt pretty confident in my abilities to get down there, and eventually like find a guitar. I knew it was going to be a quest, and that's that's kind of what I set up for myself. I
mean, you didn't set out to find the perfect guitar, did you? Or did you?
Well, yeah. I mean, ideally, I guess it'd be the perfect guitar. I wanted to find the one that was perfect for me.
Was that the driver of the trip?
Oh yeah. That's why I went, was to find the guitar.
Okay.
And so when I went, I actually got hooked up with this family through somebody I work for at the Symphony. One of my board members knows this family who lives in Guadalajara, and she ended up connecting me with them, and they offered to host me for my week while I was there, or at least while I was still in Guadalajara. And it was funny because they're a type of family I probably wouldn't normally connect with under other circumstances. They're like a very, very conservative Christian family. They're kind of like of a evangelical strain. Like they attend a church where it's like in somebody's like basement basically with like maybe like 20 other people. It's like a very, very, very extreme like Protestant sect. But the sweetest people you would ever meet, and I absolutely love them and adore them. And we got there. I eventually showed up at their place, and I think it was like my first day there. I was having coffee with the father, the patriarch. It's also a very traditional family in terms of like having the father kind of being in charge of everything. But Victor, he's a great guy. He's like an engineer. He works for a company that has like operates like sugarcane processing mills all around that region, Mexico. We had a conversation about, what I was going to do, and he's like, well, let me show you these videos. And then he proceeded to, show me like a bunch of videos on YouTube about the place I was going to, which is basically in a kind of a semi-autonomous zone in Mexico. The indigenous people there, the Prechipa is their what they go by. A few years ago, they got so fed up with the drug cartels in that area, like coming in and like cutting down their forests, which they use to, among other things, make guitars. They got so fed up with the drug cartels, who were also in cahoots with, the local police and the local politicians from the pre-party. And, it just kind of started with like a simple uprising of just like a bunch of indigenous women, with rocks in their hands, throwing them at this like cartel logging crew and driving them out. And then eventually it escalated to like the local people just kind of rising up and forming their own militia and driving the government out. So, and eventually the Mexican government is like, okay, fine, it's all you. So Victor was very concerned about, my safety. I was going to this dangerous.
Yeah, for sure. It's dangerous to go down there.
Yes and no. I mean, in retrospect, I don't know. Because I'm a gringo, I'm definitely not part of their. I'm not a threat to them by any means, and. In spite of the fact that there are no state or federal police or the cartels or official federal government forces of any kind, there's still like regular bus services that run through there. They still get internet, they still have utilities. There's still Coca-Cola. So like corporations are still operating there. So it's not That's kind of what basically anarchism, is in this era, is like you can drive out everybody, but you still can't drive out big business. Essentially, that is like really the the global governing force, right?
No, the capitalism is they'll keep that place safe enough to where the people there can be a consumer.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. And like they even like kind of have their own like TV network of sorts. I don't know if it's still up, but like if you go on, they like produce like a bunch of like videos, the municipal government, which are uploaded to YouTube. So it's not like they are like this autarkic, fully autonomous area. None of those can really exist in a global society unless you are some kind of primitive people, or that sounds really maybe not the right way to put it, but if you're like an isolated tribe somewhere, right, in the Amazon or like somewhere in like Southeast Asia, these untouched people or people untouched by modernity. That's about it. So anyway, Victor was very concerned about my well-being. And, after I spent a couple days like tooling around Guadalajara, like I looked at plenty of guitars in Guadalajara, but none were really speaking to me. And so Victor was like, okay, like after a couple days, he's like, okay, like I know this luthier in Paracho. He made my daughter's violins and cellos. They have 3 daughters. And he's like, okay, so if you want, this weekend, I've got, or well, it wasn't even on the weekend. I think it was like on Thursday or Friday. He's like, if you want, I will take you there. And
whole family trip.
Yeah, it was a whole family trip. Yeah, and it was funny because like we loaded up the family minivan. And at that point, his youngest daughter was like probably like a senior or junior in high school, and their middle daughter was still living with them. She was like, taking college courses online. But we rode in the family minivan, listened to like American Christian rock, for this entire like 4-hour car ride over there. But eventually like we get off the main like federal highway, and then we're going on like some state highways. Saw like an overturned like police SUV on the side of the highway. That was pretty intense.
Just mysteriously crashed.
Yeah,
I read that, and I wondered how it crashed.
Yeah, it's Mexico. Just like there's crazy shit everywhere all the time, which I love. And then eventually we get to the autonomous area, and there's like kind of a couple militia members with AK-47s, just like stationed on either side of the road, and we just stop and pay them a toll. They let us through. Simple as that. And so I mean if I hadn't been with Victor and his family, I would have taken a bus, and I saw plenty of like private bus lines going through, so I think I would have been fine. Just the bus company probably would have had an extra fee that goes towards paying the toll. But like once we got into Paracho, I mean it was like the middle of Holy Week, and I can't say like everything was normal, but it was normal for Holy Week because the whole town was like shut down. Like we had to park on the outskirts of town because like everything was just turned into this massive street fair. Just like thousands of people, and so it's a pretty small town, small colonial town, but we...
That's awesome. Like, it's only happened to me once where you show up to... Actually, Paul's wedding, we showed up to a town, and there was like the Blueberry Festival was going on or something, right?
I remember that there was like a like kind of a memorial dance for a girl who'd been killed in a snowmobile accident at the hotel we were staying at, and we pissed off a lot of the Vermont hillbillies by crashing that party.
Yeah, our constitutional rights were definitely violated that weekend. Yeah. But I love showing up to a town where it's like their fucking thing is happening right now.
Uh-huh.
It's like you didn't even know about it. Like, this is awesome. Love this.
Yeah,
go on. Sorry.
Yeah. It was like amazing. Like, Mexico is just a colorful place, just on the regular. And during Holy Week, it's just like even more so. I mean, just in terms of all the decor that's up, and just the dress that a lot of people wear at that time. And but yeah, we ended up kind of fighting through the crowds to get to the town square and like find this luthier shop, which was right in the town square, and in this little mercantile. And we looked at all of his instruments, and just none of them were really like speaking to me. And then, but this fellow, whose name escapes me, he was like, well, look, like I come from a family of luthiers, like my uncle, my cousins, we're all luthiers. Like if you want, like I can take you back to my family's place as long as they're cool with it, and like I'll show you like some of the nice guitars. And I was like, all right, yeah, sure, why not? And while we're waiting for him to like go get permission from his family, then like Victor, like this old like work colleague of his who like lives in Paracho came out with his wife, this like retiree, and Roberto, and got to meet him. And then eventually the luthier comes back and he's like, okay, like we got permission, so follow me. So it was like myself, Victor, his wife, his two daughters that still live with him, Roberto and his wife. We all like go in a line, like fight through the crowd. And eventually
finding the guitar.
Say what?
So everyone out of the way, this man's looking for a guitar.
Yeah, exactly. And we eventually go through like this nondescript door, on the side of this building, and and we like walk through this really long hallway. And at one point, like I look through this doorway that we're passing by, and there's this ginormous kitchen, and there's probably like like 5 women in there who are like making tamales, just slaving over like these steaming pots. And well, we just keep going because our destination is down the hallway, and we eventually end up in this like small room that's like split by this glass divider, no windows, totally dark, kind of feels like cold and dank, like almost like a dungeon. And the side that we entered in, it's like kind of this wood shop. There's like sawdust everywhere and like woodworking tools. And then, but this fellow, he takes us into the on the other side of the glass divider, and there's a couple cabinets set up full of guitars, and there's like all these other guitars that are just like lining the walls. And there's a stool in the center of the room, and he just like points to the stool. I sit down on it, and he starts handing me guitars, and I'm playing them. And this, I don't know how long this goes on, but the luthier, Victor and his family, and Roberto and his wife, they're all just like watching me, just like, is this going to be the one? Is this the guitar? No, is it the next one?
Out of boredom or
no, no. I mean, they were just like genuinely interested. Like they want to see me get the guitar, and eventually I found one that I was like, oh, this feels right, and and I was like, okay, how much does this cost? And like
what's the wood called again? Is it Cocobolo?
Cocobolo is the type of wood that my guitar is made out of. Like, I mean, the guitars in this room were made out of all these different types of woods, many of them very exotic, and probably some of them might be even kind of illegal to harvest these days. But Cocobolo, the wood that my guitar is made out of, like that's kind of a dense, dark wood that's typically used to make clarinets. So it's kind of an unorthodox tone wood. But I really like the sound it has. It has a very deep, resonant tone to it. But I don't know if that'll come through on the recording or not. But yeah, so I said, okay, but maybe this is the one. Like, can you let me know how much it costs? And so he's like, okay, well, let me go talk to my cousin. My cousin made this guitar, my cousin Ivan. So while we're sitting there, Roberto, like he wants to, he's like, can I see that? And so he takes the guitar and he starts playing it. And it's funny, he's like missing a finger that he lost in like a sugarcane mill accident. But
it's like there's a country singer. No, the country singer that just recently died was missing a finger. Do you know what I'm talking about? Is it?
Joe
it's not Ray Wiley Hubbard, is it? Is it Ray Wiley? He's one
John
of those
Prine?
guys with not John Prine. It's a three-name guy that just died. Not Ray Wiley. It was anyway. All right, never mind. I can't remember.
Save it for the next episode. Yeah. So anyway, Roberto, he ends up playing the guitar while I'm waiting to get a price, and then his wife, she starts singing along with him, and it was just very sweet. And I was like, okay, like I think this is the guitar. That was just like a sign. And so the luthier comes back and he like quotes me a price, and I was like, okay, I'll take it. And then like Victor's like, you're in Mexico, you have to haggle, right? And I was like, oh, right. It's if I'm traveling long enough in Latin America, I get accustomed to the fact like, oh yeah, haggling is like part of the deal. Like you don't agree on whatever they quote you at the outset.
Well, what does a guitar cost? Is it like $1,000?
Well, it depends. I want to say that this one was approximately $1,300 US.
Okay. And how expensive can they get, actually? Like an acoustic. It's an acoustic, but... Oh,
I guess for a point of comparison, a couple of years ago, I visited... there's a master luthier who lives in Hermiston, next door to Pendleton. His name is Les McMasters. He makes really fine guitars of the steel string variety. And I was mostly talking to him just kind of about the practice of being a luthier, just kind of scoping out like, oh, is this like maybe like a craft or a trade I want to get into? And he's like, yeah, like at a minimum for me to like, cover the cost of materials and pay myself a minimum wage, I'm like charging $7,000 for a guitar here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's
pretty small market out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
for $7,000 guitars.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I guess for a point of comparison, among other guitars you can buy in the U.S., like I bought a Gibson ES330-5, which is pretty nice, like semi-hollow body guitar. That's fairly coveted. And that was like around like $2,500. For something that's like factory produced. Like there's still like some, a lot of handwork that goes into it, but it's like an assembly line, right?
Okay. Like how many guitars, quickly, like I'm just curious, how many guitars do you have?
Well,
that you would actually use, I guess. Maybe you probably have some
Oh, yeah.
You just don't want to throw away.
Well, I've got the 2 nylons. I've got my Gibson J45, the Gibson 335, the Fender Strat, the Rickenbacker, and the Fender Tele. So I got 7 right now.
Did you say the Ivana?
Yes, yeah. That's one of the nylon strings. I ended up coming back with another nylon string from Mexico as well. Kind of Ivana's ugly sister, as Victor likes to say.
I think I might have interrupted. I think you were almost done with the story, but you weren't quite there yet.
Yeah. So anyway, so we went through a round of haggling, and then eventually we agreed on a price, and that's how I got the guitar, and and then after that we we still had plenty of time left, so we ended up meandering about the market, and then we drove down to this volcano. The name escapes me. It's near the town of Urupan, but we ended up riding some horses out to this old mission that had been covered up in lava. From this volcano that just kind of erupted out of a cornfield out of nowhere. It was almost like a, farmer just probably accidentally hit something with his plow and it just sprung up out of the ground. At least that's how
farmers are known for fucking stuff up. So that's okay to say on this podcast. Ranchers especially just always screwing stuff up.
Yeah, and I guess my piece that I wrote for the East Oregonian, that's where I kind of started embellishing and just kind of started taking things in a, magical realism turn, just kind of describing the aftermath. But, it definitely was like a mystical experience the whole week because, there's plenty that happened after that I didn't write about. The next day when I was in Guadalajara, we finally got back to Guadalajara late that night, and then the next day I ended up just going out on the town to just kind of see what was happening, and ended up meeting this artist, who was basically it kind of boiled down to the fact he was just trying to pick me up. He was trying to seduce me, and convince me to come back to his place and do a nude figure drawing of me. And I guess
it's a good deal.
How much? I got a pretty nice figure drawing out of him. I didn't go nude, but I guess I was being a cock tease, if you want to. But he was a very nice guy, and he was also kind of a mystic. And we had a lot of pretty intense conversations that one day, and then after that, it was I went to an Easter service with Victor and his family, on Easter Day, which was also April Fool's Day. And then also that earlier that day, I ended up making amends with an ex-girlfriend of mine too. So it was just a lot was packed into that one week.
I think right now it's time for another song, and this whole discussion, I think the perfect song to do is my favorite song that you have. It's one of those songs that every time I'm in town and you happen to be performing somewhere and I go down to GP, it is the one song that is most familiar. Do you know what I'm going to say? It's We Were Strangers.
Oh, let's pretend we're strangers. Yeah.
You don't have to do that one right now, but I feel like all these strangers you met on your trip to Mexico.
Yeah, well, the aforementioned girlfriend that I made amends with at the tail end of my story, I guess she kind of figures into this song, right?
I didn't know there was a woman through all these songs. Maybe offline I'll ask you who this woman was.
Oh yeah, nobody you would know. Nobody from Pendleton.
She's a model in Canada.
Yeah. I met her at summer break at Niagara Falls. I've had sex, guys. It's really great. It's really good.
I too have had sex before.
I too am a sex haver. Okay. Yeah, this is called let's pretend we're strangers. Wouldn't it be such a thrill if the two of us rode, staged and scripted, a quote chance meeting, unquote, a simulated encounter on this soap opera set? Let's pretend we're strangers, darling, like we never met. Let's pretend we're strangers in a crowded house party. I'll watch you work the room just to take a part of me. From our ice cold shaking hands, nobody would suspect. Let's pretend we're strangers, darling, like we never met. You don't know how I look forward to the games we'll play when we're in the maddening crowd in the harsh light of day. My heart is yearning for you, but I just can't show it yet. Let's pretend we're strangers, darling, like we never met. Let's pretend we're strangers when we go out in public, feign the faintest glimpse of each other would make us sick. I know that you are old enough to keep a secret. Let's pretend we're strangers, darling, like we never met. Pretend we're strangers. We go out on the town. There'll be no trace of the histories that lie between us now. Forever I will hold these cards up close to my chest. Let's pretend we're strangers, darling, like we never met. Let's pretend we're strangers, darling, like we never met.
It nailed it.
Thank you.
Good job. It's weird to hear a song and then not hear like clapping immediately afterwards, but you can't be the only person that claps, you know?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've only done a handful of these internet performances, yeah, and it's, I don't know. I'm getting used to not having the applause immediately afterwards, but it is still a little strange.
You know what I love about your albums? So, well, okay, at the beginning of the pandemic, again, another thing that came up was I got kind of bored. So I was like, finally, I achieved my dream, easily achieved goal of getting a turntable so you play records. So remember I was texting you, I was like, how do you do this? To me at that point in time, the concept was like, okay, so I need the turntable, I need the amp, I need a fucking another thing that like just like send me a package, like a good package of stuff. And you sent me some stuff that was like, I was like, that's too expensive. I'm not gonna do that. But I ended up getting a U-turn turntable, which you recommended.
Yeah, I think there's good budget turntables for sure. I've got one myself.
And it's one of my favorite possessions. So then I started collecting albums, and then one of the beautiful things about albums, especially yours, is that the only two that I have, but maybe it's a trend for you, but you include like a really great, I don't know what you call it, but like the little story that's on the back of it, like an inspirational story.
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't need to talk about that, but I just really liked reading them. I never noticed them before. I read them.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of liner notes and albums, and and in general, I'm just like a big fan of like the immersive album experience. Even just beyond like the album, the music on the record, kind of creating this whole world for you to inhabit. Like, I like having kind of a complete package that of artwork that really kind of draws you into this world.
Yeah, the artwork's really cool. What's the deal with so I was listening and reading the lyrics along with it. They're not perfect. What's going on there?
Oh, yeah, there's probably a discrepancy between the what I wrote down or what I typed up, and then versus what I delivered on the microphone.
Okay.
But I'm not the only person that's happened to. I know there's plenty of records where
I think it's a good thing. It's probably a good thing, but
yeah, I mean,
it makes the listener think. It's like, what? Okay, that both of those words work, kind of, right?
Yeah, and a song is never, a song is never set in stone. Even when you have a recording of it or something notated, it can always change. One of my favorite songwriters is the late Leonard Cohen, and he's very notorious for adding in additional verses to his songs live. So yeah, if you listen to one of his live, a live rendition of a song, it might be twice as long as one of the studio recordings because he's added in all these verses. And that's kind of almost part of like like the folk tradition, right? Where music is transmitted orally, and so as a result, the lyrics tend to change, as it gets conveyed from one person to the next.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely noticed that with, particularly the people that I've seen multiple times live. Like I've seen Jason Isbell 10, 15 times in person. And his songs always change. It's kind of interesting how that happens. Gosh, I don't know.
That to me that's more exciting than just like hearing something that is just a straight reproduction of what you hear on the record. I mean, in some ways that's technically impressive, but it's I don't know. Songs are these living things that are meant to grow and evolve.
Yeah. Did you see? Did you watch the what's the when Biden got sworn in, the swearing in ceremony?
Oh, the inauguration?
Inauguration.
I didn't watch that. Not going to waste my time on that.
It was.
Sorry.
No, I watch it. I mean, it's fantastic. I love that sort of stuff. Like, I think the best day of the year is, Friday of Roundup is the best day of the year. Second best day of the year is probably Saturday of Roundup. Third best day of the year is
Thursday Roundup.
Yeah, probably. Okay, so the fourth best day of the year, top 10 day of the year is the State of the Union for me. I love watching the State of the Union address. I always make sure I don't have any plans so I can watch that. It was way better when Obama was doing it because it was like a stand-up special for some reason. For me.
He's a very, for whatever you think about Obama, he's a very charismatic speaker. He's very fun to listen to.
Well, I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy, and I'm not going to claim that I'm any form of an expert on it, and I agree with them. But the comics always, a lot of the great comics like Bill Burr and Joe Rogan and Chappelle. I don't know if they've all said this, but they kind of allude to the fact that Obama has great timing.
Mm-hmm.
He would be a great comic. And we talked about this a little bit before. I don't know. It kind of naturally went into politics a little bit, but I want to talk about it. So there is this, we're in a very politically divided environment. And I follow people like Jason Isbell on Twitter. And a lot of these guys, like, there's always a general theme that artists, especially musical artists, are super liberal.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason Isbell even tweeted, like, well, why don't you go listen to one of the artists that are on your political spectrum? I don't know what to make of that. I don't agree with, as far as I know, any of them on their politics, but I can still appreciate what they do. I don't know how to reconcile that. And I want to know from you, a musical artist, what do you think? Like, are you allowed to listen to the art? Of course you're allowed to listen to it. Like, go fuck yourself if you're telling me I can't listen to your art. Like, you put it out there, I can listen to it, and I can take away from it whatever I wanted to take away from it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just a weird thing. It's like the stance is that we're the liberals and we make the music and we're right. And if you don't like it, stop listening to me. Right? It just seems so dismissive and childish to me.
Huh.
I want to know from you what you think about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, regarding the term liberal, I think everybody is a liberal. You're either generally, as far as like the American politics goes, you're either a conservative liberal or you're a progressive liberal. But we can quibble over definitions another time, I suppose. But
I think we're talking about the progressives, is what we're talking about.
I know what you mean. Yeah, generally part of the Democratic apparatus, Democratic Party apparatus, right? Yeah, I mean, I think that you should be able to enjoy somebody's art regardless of whatever their political beliefs are or their personal life is. The art stands for itself, ideally. And probably like some of the worst art out there is political art.
It expires quickly, right? Your political art's going to be out of date in 3 months.
Yeah, there's that aspect to it. I think my biggest problem with any kind of political art is it doesn't provide room for the audience or to draw their own conclusions and interact with the art. It's so the whiskey's kind of getting to me, so my vocabulary is slipping. But
that's the beauty of it.
It's just like so dictatorial and trying to basically tell you what to think, as opposed to like inviting you to like kind of inhabit the space and play with it and draw your own conclusions. So I think there's a lot of bad, quote, conservative art out there, and there's a lot of bad progressive art out there. I think there is some some political art that ends up being transcends being like terrible and campy, but it's few and far between. Like I feel like I don't know, like a good example is like Bob Dylan, right? Bob Dylan, he would be the first to say that he doesn't belong to any kind of political persuasion. I mean, probably does by default, right? He's also a liberal in terms of how he lives his life, like we all do. But a lot of his folk protest anthems were so like ambiguous in terms of its content that Blown in the Wind, yeah, it was very applicable to the civil rights movement, but you could extrapolate that to a host of other different contexts as well. And I guess you could say that I'm definitely more of a lefty if you believe in the idea of that kind of left-right binary. But some of my favorite authors are like straight up fascists, right? Like people like Yukio Mishima from Japan. I mean, he was a straight up fascist who like actually like had an insurrection riot at the Royal Palace in Japan. He was a lot more successful than what happened, this past January. And then he killed himself immediately afterwards. Or like Knut Hamsun from Norway, or Louis Ferdinand Celine, who was a big fan of Hitler. There was definitely a trend, in the middle of the 20th century of like these really like wonderful writers who also happen to be fascists. And then also just like in terms of like the Italian fascist movement, like there's a lot of great visual art that came out of that. So, and obviously like, I don't know, I would assume we're both of the opinion that like, just fascism in general is not desirable, but,
I don't know how you define it though. I mean, we don't need to get into this. I feel like definition has just been so bastardized. What is it anymore? Like
it's like any other kind of label, right? Like it's
just like you're a fascist. Like, am I? I didn't think I was a fascist.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Trump's not a fascist.
Right.
Maybe he's a neo-fascist.
Elements
if you want to parse that out, but
might have elements of fascism, but it's not full blown.
Well, he's no more fascistic than like any other U.S. president from like FDR onwards, right? I mean, I would say like FDR interning the Japanese seems pretty fascistic to me, and like if you read like a lot of pretty extreme left-wing literature. Like a lot of Maoist stuff out of the 60s, like they like straight up call FDR a fascist, so
yeah, Americans just like it seems like they like to compare people to Hitler and fascists.
Yeah,
maybe it's like I don't know what that's all about.
Well, yeah, it's Hitler's kind of the eternal boogeyman that you can Hitler loved dogs. I love dogs. Therefore, I am, just as bad as Hitler, right? Like that's, I think it's kind of a similar logic that's like being tossed around, when you use any kind of political ideology term. How am I constructing my sentence here? Goddamn whiskey. Yeah, I mean, it's it's the same thing with like calling I don't know Biden a socialist. Like it's just so fucking out there, to call him a socialist. And but it's apparently this taboo label to throw on him.
Yeah,
and
I've been on the regular podcast. My three colleagues are. I don't know. I don't want to call them right wing, but they're kind of right wing. And people probably call me right wing too, but I don't think I am. I think Biden will be fine. I think what we should be worried about is the people after, not me. I am worried about the people coming after Biden. I think we'll be fine for the next 4 years. Then who knows?
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think one thing you said, and I wrote it down. You said something about the Capitol riot, and it reminded me of a tweet that I saw today. And then I saw, when you're on Twitter and it's like one of your people you follow also liked this or liked this, and I saw that you liked a tweet that came up in my feed today from Weeble, and they were like, we're going to start allowing GameStop trading tomorrow, and that
might be a little too late.
Interest, because I've been on this shit for over a week, and the tweet I saw earlier was Capitol riot with the O, and then the Capitol riot with an A. I think this is you're on it too. Maybe, I don't know. Are you on it?
On Weeble?
No. Do you have some GameStop stock?
No. I mean, I think that by the time I was ready to possibly pull the trigger on that, the ship had already sailed. I think it was like yesterday midday. I was like, I have a TD Ameritrade account, so I was like, but by then they had already like suspended buying GameStop and all these other short squeezes that were going on. So I don't know. Hopefully somebody will file a class action lawsuit against TD Ameritrade that I can jump on, right? Just like they've filed against Robinhood.
I'd say go on there tomorrow and buy one share, or not even a share, buy a fractional share and see what happens. But I've been following it very closely. It's consumed my week entirely. Because last week I jumped into it. Like, I don't know what's going to happen to this. And now I've been saying this is going to be the biggest. This is going to be the next. It's going to be bigger than Madoff. It's going to be like the financial crisis. I think this could potentially not take down, but it's going to do some damage to the financial system if they don't maneuver themselves out of it, which they're doing through seemingly illegal practices of restricting purchase. The entire investment strategy of the Webull and the Robinhood crowd and the Reddit crowd is don't sell. So you got these people on there like, well, we didn't restrict the stock, you can still sell it. Like that's our entire strategy. Don't sell it. We don't want to sell it.
But yeah, I mean the intent was to obviously like protect those hedge funds that were being that had all the shorts. So
yeah, they're protecting them. It's crazy, and I think it's unifying it. I think it could, and it is, and it could continue to, if the free market is allowed to prevail. This is the answer. Like, we've been so divided on political lines that I think we can all unite again against these fucking hedge funds that are. The idea behind GameStop is it's a dying company. They're trying to reinvent their business model. They're sitting here, they're a sitting duck. And then you got these hedge funds that are piling on short positions, driving down the stock price. Meanwhile, if you're in Oregon or California or whatever state with lockdown orders, you can't even open up your store. So you can't open up your store to generate revenue, and people on Wall Street are betting against you to fail. Like, that's unfair. And Reddit was like, that is unfair. So let's put money on this. This has happened. I think it's fantastic. But anyway, I saw you liked a tweet about it.
I mean, Yeah, who knows? Maybe I'll buy a little bit of GameStop and some Nokia and AMC through them. We'll see.
Careful.
I got a little bit of money to play with, I guess. But certainly been purchasing a lot more crypto, over the past 6 months.
So have I.
Wish I'd done it sooner.
Yeah. No, I have too. I've been buying Bitcoin as much as I can because I don't like the direction we're headed economically. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I didn't want to get into politics that much, but thought we'd touch on it.
We're talking about finance. We're talking about global capital. I mean it's all political. Even music is political. Everything, culture is downstream of politics, right? Somebody said that.
That seems right. Well, I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. Talk about that all day. Which chicken and egg question, right?
Yeah. I mean, you could both positions are valid, whether or not it's culture downstream of politics or vice versa.
Yeah. JD, do you have another song for us? I feel like we've been on this for a while. Probably let you go pretty soon, but
yeah,
I want to hear another song for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Got a new one.
Maybe two. Maybe you could do two of them.
Yeah, let's do two in a row to kind of counterbalance all the gum flapping we've been.
What are you gonna sing?
What was that?
Tell us a little bit about each song before you sing it. I want to know what inspired it or what the message is.
Sure.
I always like when they do that at a singer-songwriter concert.
Yeah, I mean, if I was at the, say like the Great Pacific, my home away from home in downtown Pendleton, if I was doing a solo show down there, I'll just have a little preamble before most every other song.
If you go to GP, tell them Far Reaches sent you, and they'll probably act confused, but ask for the reach around anyway.
Yeah. They're very polite there, so they'll just smile and nod, at the most, if you say that. So this is a new song, newish song called Trout Fishing in Eastern Oregon. And made a recording of it in 2020 with the Playboys. We've been recording kind of off and on throughout the year. It's kind of been disruptive as of late, since COVID, kind of really kind of roared back around here in Umatilla County, and just, having 5 guys, the 4 band members and the studio engineer, in a enclosed space, for 5 hours at a time. That's just a little too risky of an activity. So, we've kind of put things on ice for the time being, but we did get this really wonderful recording out of it, which is on my Patreon feed. And I don't know. I guess I don't have the URL off the top of my head, but I can certainly give that to you. But if you want to listen to a recording of this, I have like many different iterations of it on the Patreon feed, and features some really fantastic lead guitar work by one Shaner Applegate, who is a guitar player for the country rock band Imperial Twang, and he's also he's got to be like a 3rd or 4th generation wheat farmer. Do you know? No?
I'm on mute. I bet our listeners will know exactly who he is, though.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so anyway, trout fish in Eastern Oregon. It's just kind of about the joys of outdoor activities in Eastern Oregon, and just kind of how somewhat how that affects with gels with the effects of climate change these days. Across the canyon, sound of shotguns, picking off flocks of clay pigeons. on the top side of Ponderosa Pines, wandering wind gusts, moans, and sighs. Park the family rig on a gravel road, picking huckleberries by the bucket load, casting a fly way out in the stream, catching a branch way up in the trees, catching a branch way up in the trees. Ooh, someone's trout fishing in Eastern Oregon. Ooh, someone, Early this morning I awoke, find the hills turning blue with smoke, ash flowing forth from the mountain, forest fire spewing like a fountain, forest fire spewing like a fountain. Ooh, someone's trout fishing in Eastern Oregon. Ooh, someone, Blue mountains, ash flowing forth like a fountain. Blue mountains,
John fucking Denver, right here, everybody.
Did you say John fucking Denver?
Yeah. No, that was fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
If I wrote down those words, someone's trout fishing in Eastern Oregon, like how would you even make that into a melody? I loved it.
All right. Yeah, thank you. You know, Oregon is a hard word to rhyme. So,
Eastern Oregon's even harder.
Yeah. You know, so
that was great.
I like to pull a lot of classic songwriter tricks and just like do these weird half rhymes and stuff like that.
Someone's fishing in Oregon. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I
will
feel
that
like
be on a new album?
Yeah, I mean, it will be on the 5th Playboys album whenever we release that. And that's. I'm gonna pour out the rest of this whiskey. I've gotten through about a third of this bottle, finished it off. So,
running on empty there.
Yeah, I don't know. We had like demoed out probably like 25 songs in the spring of 2020, and I don't know. We probably got through recording about 7 of them into various states of completion, and then I've written a whole bunch of new ones since, and have like kind of started like recording like little fragments of them. So. I don't know, it could be like a 4-record album. I don't know. That'd be really cool. But
and I don't want to spring something on you, but do you know any John Prine songs by memory? Yeah, it's fine. Too hard, probably.
Yeah, damn. None I'd be comfortable with. I'd have to like look some lyrics up and stuff, and I might still even butcher it.
Afterwards, I'm going to go listen to some John Prine, I think.
Yeah, you know, it's like at the beginning of, because John Prine died last year, right? And
this year. Died of COVID.
Yeah, in 2020. And
right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still writing 2020 on my checks too, man. Yeah, but like not long after he died, a friend of mine from Berlin sent me a message, and she's like, hey, like, I'm going to be taking part in like this international John Prine tribute show that's happening, via Zoom that'll be like sent to YouTube. Do you want to join?
I remember that actually.
Yeah, it might still be up somewhere on the interweb. And this was like pretty early on in during the pandemic, right? And it was funny because it was, when it took place, it was like in the middle of the night in Germany. It was probably like 7 p.m. at night, but it was like the morning over here. And but it was cool because there was like a lot of people from Germany, but there were some folks from the UK and Denmark. Somebody from Montreal, Nashville. I was the only person from the West Coast. And
I think I actually watched it. You sat outside.
I was outside on my porch. Everybody else was just like huddled inside like their little studio apartments in whatever city they were in. And I felt kind of terrible because like I have my laptop on like a swiveling like music stand. I was like, "Hey, greetings from Eastern Oregon. I'm JD Kindle, and here's this beautiful view.
Here's my plot."
And I could just like see everybody else on the Zoom conference, like they just like started like grimacing, like they're like, "Oh great, we're like stuck in this like little tiny apartment here in Strasbourg," and
it's nice to live out there.
But I did a John Prine song for that, which has now escaped me. But I guess I'll now I've finally got my guitar in tune, so I guess I'll do this is kind of another newish tune that I perform with my other band, which is called the Hypermodern Country Quartet. And that's more of a traditional country band in terms of its instrumentation. We have a pedal steel and an upright bass and a guy who plays telly, and I usually play like either an acoustic or another electric guitar. And kind of the band, we obviously play my original songs, some of my original songs, and but we also play like a lot of Western swing and like some like modal jazz, and I'm like even like trying to like introduce like even like kind of arrangements of like classical material and like even kind of like incorporating concepts from like new music and experimental music into this group as well. It's just kind of not to denigrate the Playboys, but like this group is like pretty. They're some pickers. They really know their shit in terms of technique, and so I can really kind of push this ensemble into uncharted territory. But that said, this song, Last Time I Heard, is definitely kind of more of like a jazz country piece. So I will play that one. A silver lariat cast past the sunset to pull down a star and lasso my heart. The loops bind my limbs. I'll never walk free again. And I'm here from the start. Lasso my heart. Now I'm not inclined to believe in magic. It's kinda changing my mind as I spin these rope tricks. Let by my wrist with the dark, lasso my heart. I'm not inclined to believe in magic. It's kinda changing my mind as I spin these rope tricks. With a silver lariat cast past the sunset to pull down a star and lasso my heart.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. The setup is so good.
Yeah, once I finally got those strings in tune.
So what's next for James Dean Kindle and the Eastern Oregon Playboys?
Well, I mean, we recently just kind of restarted recording, albeit in kind of a more COVID-conscious manner. So, you know, we'll just kind of keep plugging along as much as we can on, you know, the fifth album. And we'll eventually finish it. I'm not worried about that. And that's really kind of just the end goal with that band right now. The hypermodern.
Do you think there's? Oh, go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, with the hypermodern country quartet, I mean we are scheduled to play Jackalope Jamboree this June, but you know, with each passing day, the prospect of having a live outdoor music festival, you know, just kind of seems more of a foregone conclusion. So. But I am hoping to get in the studio with those guys too. We had done some preliminary recording with this fellow named Mike Vasquez, who has a really fantastic recording studio in Ione, Oregon, of all places, and fully analog too. This guy's amazing. But at least, you know, half of that band has been vaccinated because they are nurses. And I got my first dose of the vaccine this week, so hopefully that means that group can, you know, start up, ramp up some activities here soon. And then other than that, you know, I'm just trying to not, you know, fall into some kind of malaise and keep, you know, trying to feel inspired to write songs right now. But you know. It's, you know, until there's like some kind of definitive end to, you know, the pandemic, you know, it's just kind of a waiting game, unfortunately.
Do you think that there's appetite in Pendleton for more live music? I feel like there's some. Whenever I go home, I'm surprised that there's some. It's usually you or Imperial Twang.
Oh, you're like just not taking COVID, like the pandemic, into account, you mean?
Yeah, just generally. I feel like there should be more music in town regularly. Like every Friday night, there should be a band playing somewhere.
Yeah, well, and more often than not, there is. You know, I mean, the Great Pacific is pretty good about, you know, having something going on at least like once a week. And I think even Hamleys, you know, they would have like, you know, under normal circumstances, they'd always have like somebody playing on Saturday. You know, which you know, usually is just kind of a solo act in the corner of the bar, nobody pays attention to. But you know, Pendleton has a for being a rural community, Pendleton has a lot going on, you know, culturally speaking. Did you know there are 3 recording studios in Pendleton now?
Did not know that.
Yeah.
I knew there's a lot going on in Pendleton. I think it's underrated for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I didn't know there was.
Yeah, so there's 3 recording studios. We have a symphony orchestra. You know, pretty robust like music education program within the school district.
That's all you guys, isn't it? It's like you and Peter and your cohort out there in Pendleton, like your group of buddies.
Yeah, I mean, we all kind of
you guys are creating a lot of cool shit.
Yeah, well, and thank you. I mean, you know, one of the things I realized about Pendleton, you know, probably around the time I turned, you know, I was in my late 20s, was just one of the things that's so great about a small town, and Pendleton in particular, is the fact that you it's easy to get to know everybody and know who to go talk to in order to make something happen. And I've been able to realize my dreams of becoming a, you know, professional musician in Pendleton more so than when I ever lived in Portland, you know, where there's just like a oversupply of musicians that, you know, kind of just creates this cutthroat environment, you know, and also just kind of just do the laws of supply and demand, you know, just drives down the price you can ask, you know, for playing a gig around there.
And plus you're just more authentic too.
Yeah, exactly. And
kid from Portland.
Yeah, I mean, Portland is a city full of transplants at this point, and
right.
A lot of those transplants are going to be going somewhere else. You know, once you know, once we get to the other side of this pandemic. I mean, you know, I would like to think that you know, once all the restrictions are lifted, things will go immediately back to normal, but they won't because of all the, you know, disruption that's caused. You know, there's going to be a lot of people moving around the country, and it's going to change like the culture of every town, basically, and that will of course like affect, you know, each town's music scene. I guess maybe the fact that Pendleton has, you know, kind of had this perennial housing crisis might actually be a good thing. You know, because like we're not going to get we won't become a Zoom town overnight. You know, like say like Wallowa County is, or like Baker Valley. There's a lot of people from California and Seattle. They're just like buying up property in those places, you know, because now they're working remotely, and it's not going to stop.
I did not know that. That'll be.
Yeah, a lot of new properties or a lot of new houses being built in Baker Valley, some of which are just automatically being turned into Airbnbs.
Yeah, Raleigh's one of the 4 on the podcast. He lives up there in
Wallowa.
In Wallowa, they call it the county, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Wallowa or Joseph? I don't know. It lives by Joseph somewhere. Dude, some of the houses up there are ridiculous. Like just mansions, like they live in that show Yellowstone, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Creating their own version there. And they don't live there. They're just there in the summertime, and then they leave. But anyway.
Yeah, and this is where I feel like I am a conservative because I don't want those people moving here, right? I want things to stay as they are, and that means like no development.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly acceptable. Yeah. I'm one of those people that's in a place where I don't think I'm wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I come to that realization, and so I'm going to go ahead and leave. So
Well,
they kicked me out.
I don't know. Are you working remotely? Well, yeah, you must be working remotely right now.
I am. Yeah. I'm remote. I think I'll be remote for all of 2021 at a minimum. So you might see me in Pendleton there. I might be back.
Word.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think if anybody has a right to be working remotely from Pendleton, it's you, right?
I'm gonna run for mayor. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff. It's a nice place to live. You got
Yeah, you
a
don't
lot
have
of
to deal
stuff
with
to do
traffic.
outdoors. Yeah, there's no traffic. You can be outside. You can go golf for next to nothing. You can, yeah, it's fantastic. Go gamble.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, there are benefits to the city, right? I mean, you have access to a lot more cultural events than you would normally have.
Yeah.
You can go out and see something every night in New York for sure, under normal circumstances. But,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I like the small town pace for sure. And
Well, when this is over, if I am still here, we were talking about it last year that, oops, you still there?
Yep.
We were talking about last year that you had a gig planned out here in New York, and I was really looking forward to that. Or you're planning a gig in my neighborhood. Do you remember that? Yeah.
Well, I know. Oh, well, yeah, that's right. You had like clued me into a couple bars that I had been reaching out to, and yeah, I think yeah, that's right. Because I was gonna go out to New York in April to go see a concert.
Right.
At I can't recall the name of the venue, but I was gonna go see this.
Some Jewish venue in my neighborhood.
Maybe I don't know about that, but the band I was going to see was this British art rock band called Tindersticks, who like they're one of my favorite bands. I was foiled once before when I was like going to go see them in Europe because I missed my flight. I showed up like 15 minutes too late to the airport. Walla Walla Airport. Those guys are fascists down at the Walla Walla Airport. Yeah, they wouldn't let me on the plane, so I missed this festival. But and then I was gonna go see him in New York in April, and then COVID happened. And then in the process, I was gonna try to book some shows while I was there, but it was all for naught. So.
Well, JD, is fucking great having you for my first go at this Far Reaches Extra. I couldn't think of a better guest. Wow. So thank you for coming on. And I'll see you around town there and pretty soon, I think.
Well, yeah. Thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun, and I'd love to come back on again. Meet the rest of your co-hosts. So.
All right, thanks guys. Thank you for listening. Catch Micah in his regular scheduled Far Reaches podcast. Good night.
Adios.
All right. Do we need to stop recording or?
Yeah. Let me.
What do you think? How'd that go?
That went pretty good.